Good evening. This is CTV News for Monday, May 4th. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Sonia Srivastava. Glad to have you with us tonight. Local educators and officials continue to call on Governor Hogan to release $68 million in school funds across the state. Now, this week, districts across the region are holding press conferences asking Hogan to end his policy disagreement with the General Assembly. This morning, one of those events was held at Prince George's Education Association in Forestville.
The Thornton Commission that I had the honor of chairing represents a fundamental consensus about the approach that the people of Maryland want to take to the education of their children. It was a hard-won consensus, a broad, deep consensus, reflecting nonpartisanship, no race-based differences, geographical differences, county differences about the education of our children. I think the most important statement that we want to make this morning, in addition to the need to fully fund what the General Assembly has indicated should be funded, is the importance of maintaining that consensus and not going back and not artificially dividing us as a people.
In Prince George's County Public Schools, where over 62% of our students come from conditions of poverty, we are charged with the task of providing a world-class education for all of our students. That is why I find it immoral and unjustifiable to deny our students critical funding that can assist in preparing them for the competitive world they face.
Prince George's stands to lose the most, more than $20 million in school funding. Montgomery County could lose nearly $18 million, and Baltimore City more than $11 million.
A Prince George's police officer accused of assaulting a Suitland High School's teenager learns his fate. Latifah Majed is at the courthouse in Upper Marlboro and has the story.
That's right. A judge found Charles Picard guilty on second-degree assault, reckless endangerment, and misconduct in office. Now, we spoke with the victim who did not want to appear on camera, and he says that he's happy with the verdict, but the incident has left him scarred.
I walked down the street, I came this, I got to watch what's going on. A police officer beat a child up, and it's like, oh, man.
In November 2013, Officer Picard was working as a resource officer when, as you can see in this surveillance video, he punches the then 17-year-old student. During the trial, Picard said that the student had a mask on and marijuana in his pockets, but the judge says those accusations were false.
The next piece with this would be, for us, would be an administrative hearing board. And I can't go into my recommendations on that because I'm the final say in that process. But that kind of action has no place on this police department.
In this case, Officer Picard had a number of students who wrote in and said they wanted him to remain at the school. We had today in the courtroom community leaders who say that Officer Picard has really contributed quite a bit to this community. So he is beloved, he is well liked, and it's just that his conduct on this day, which is why it's impossible for us to say that Officer Picard is not a good person. In fact, I think that everything we've heard is to the contrary. This is a person who cared deeply, who lost his temper on that day, and so his conduct he committed a crime.
Picard's sentencing will take place in July, and he faces up to 10 years in prison. In Upper Marlboro, I'm Latifah Majed, CTV News.
Meantime, a former D.C. police officer stands trial for the second time for allegedly trying to kill his wife in their Accokeek home. Today was the first of a three-day hearing in the case of Sampson Lawrence versus the state. Prosecutors say in November of 2013, Lawrence sprayed Lysol on his wife and held knives to her face and beat her in the head with a metal lamppost. During the first trial, which ended in a hung jury, Lawrence was sent to jail for violating the conditions of his bond by having contact with his wife. He remains in custody.
Baltimore is trying to return to some normalcy a week after riots broke out in the city. Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake has lifted the citywide curfew. The Maryland National Guard will slowly withdraw its presence. Now, some soldiers that were posted at the Inner Harbor are already gone. Majority of the protests have been peaceful since the charges against all 6 police officers involved in Freddie Gray's were announced. The Bowie Police Department is trying to buy body cameras for all its patrol officers. Chief John Neske says they are still in the midst of finalizing the details, but he wants to allocate $70,000 in next year's budget to purchase the devices. The cameras capture and record officers' interactions with the public.
Whether or not it's necessary is a different question. Is it an accountability tool? Yes. Is it something that we should be looking at as, again, an accountability tool? As more departments get them and as more departments move towards them, if they work the way they're designed to work and the way that some of the studies show, it's going to be a question of why don't you have them versus do you have them?
Meanwhile, Neske says he and his colleagues have been monitoring the events in Baltimore closely, and he offers this simple advice.
Talk to the officers about staying safe, but at the same time, make sure that you're approachable. It is by no means an us and them attitude. You have to have it's an us attitude.
Now, the Maryland General Assembly passed legislation that tells police agencies when and where the body cameras can be used. Governor Larry Hogan has yet to sign the bill.
Well, during the heart of the protests following the Freddie Gray incident, many people were taking pictures. Now the Maryland Historical Society is looking to collect those photos. The president of the organization says they want to document what happened because it is a very important topic for public history. You can submit anything you have through Dropbox at remembrance@mdhs.org. The pictures will be made available to the public for viewing. The Maryland Historical Society is also collecting objects and will be interviewing protesters and others. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Sonia Shrivastava.